Growing up in Blackville was interesting to the level that my parents and grandparents shared the same piece of property. It was very rural. I remember a lot of cats. My grandmother Josie had an orange little Beetle, like a Volkswagen. I remember her driving in that. For some reason I remember a lot of Elvis Presley songs playing on the radio and on records. And the Beatles. But I remember one really unique part of it is that I was able to actually meet 3 of my great-grandparents. My father's grandfather on his mother's side, and both of my father's grandparents on his father's side, and got to know them all, and that was interesting. I think I always had held a different type of respect for the elderly because of that, because I was so young and I was meeting grandparents that, you know, were into their 80s and I was only 4, you know, and 5 years old, and I think it's something that helped me as an individual. Another thing interesting about living in Blackville is it's a very unique town in that it has the potential to be one of the prettiest, most beautiful communities along the Miramichi River because of its locality. We've got the Bartholomew River running through it, right through the center of Blackville, and we have the municipal park and a really nice terrain. And I think Blackville itself is 247 years old, the parish, and so we're an old community. To that extent, but a significant one, and I was always proud to be from here. And one of the things that was most interesting to me personally was salmon fishing. My grandfather on my father's side was a field supervisor for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, stationed from Truro, Nova Scotia, to Blackville for a 4 or 5 year stint as the chief, and that in turn my father stayed here, and the rest is history. But through all of that I learned how to fly fish, and it's something that a lot of kids my age didn't fly fish. Like when I went to school, there were a lot of kids my age that were fly fishing, but as I look back over the years, I think fly fishing is it's becoming more of an art form now than maybe in the past, because not all kids fly fish. And I think that's sad. I think that people here, all kids should learn how to fish for Atlantic salmon. I think that's important. It's an important cultural point in living here, and it's a part of our heritage, and I'm really passionate about that. Looking back to my childhood, when I left here when I was 19 to go to Fredericton to university, I never thought I would live in Blackville. I always thought I would have to live somewhere else, and I wasn't sure what exactly I thought I would be doing. I never thought I would be a member of the Legislative Assembly. I was never very political. I certainly cared about the process of what was happening at the local level, and as I got older, took quite an interest in provincial issues and federal. But in terms of political parties and allegiances, I didn't have any. I was kind of always just wanted to see the right thing done. I was kind of black and white that way. I always wanted people to have the best they could have, and the right thing to be done for the people is most important. But looking back on being in university and believing that I wouldn't potentially live here, it was always a tough sell personally, because you can't get what we have here in other places. I lived in South Korea for a while, spent some time in Italy, lived in Maine for a while I attended university, and there's no place like here, and that's a tough part when you're not here. But looking back to 2008, I had actually moved home and been here for approximately 2.5 years or so. I think I moved back to Blackville when I was 28, and So almost 10 years later from the time that I assumed I would never actually get a chance to live here, until of course maybe retirement, I started taking an interest in municipal politics and got elected as councillor and tried to make some change and took a stand on a few things, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything that I stood for. I look back on it, and you can't have regrets that way, because you do what you think is right at the time, and you do what you think is in the best interests of the people. And sometimes years down the road you discover that you may have been wrong, it may have been the wrong thing to do, but most times when I look back at things I did, I don't regret them. After the municipal election in 2008, I instantly became involved at a greater level with different aspects of the municipality. And it didn't take me long to kind of have a craving that I could do more. And that, I think, is what drove me to becoming the candidate at the PC nomination, April 2010, and what later, of course, I won the election, the provincial election on September 27th, 2010. So I had this urge that I wanted to do more, but in the back of my head, I actually thought I can do more, and I still feel that way. One of the first things I learned after the election is the really tough part about this position is there exists no manual. There's no manual for doing this type of work. There's no, this is exactly what you do in this situation, and you really have to go take the advice of other people who you can confide in, and a lot of the times you have to go with your gut feeling on things, and that's tough. I mean, a lot of issues are settled by policy and legislation, but it's tough. I mean, there's times, one of the first things I learned is, somebody leaves my office and I'm like, how am I going to help this person, and after 2 years, it's gotten inherently easier. The job is never easy, but I did not know at first what to do. And you learn by a lot of trial and error. You learn by making mistakes. I've made a few, I'll probably make a few more too. And that's the beauty of it, though, in one sense, because you can, if you make a mistake, you will learn from it, but there still is no manual. So you're always, sometimes you get caught up and potentially second guess something, but you've got to keep going straight ahead. And you can't look back. You have to keep working in this job, because when you stop working, nothing is going to get done when you stop working. And you have to care about people. You can't just, I'm going to go spend my time in Fredericton. People in Southwest Miramichi were very clear. They don't want to hear about me spending time in Fredericton. They recognize there's a job to do in Fredericton, a very important part of the job, the legislative setting and session, for example, and committee work, but the people here are very clear to me. They want me to go to their dances and their birthday parties and the anniversaries, the benefits, ball tournaments, you name it. These are the things that are important to rural people. I think one of the key components of Southwest Miramichi and bringing it forward would be industry. My advice to any people living in Southwest Miramichi is that industries, we must find a way to welcome them, to embrace them, because without industries, we're going to see more and more people leave to go west to work in the very industries that some people are standing in front of. And we need to take a really strong look at those industries and what it's doing for people who we know. Because I mean, I have 3 children, and I'd like my children to be able to live in Southwest Miramichi. I'd love them to be able to live in Blackville. That would be great, you know. And it's not just a pipe dream. It's most parents want their children to live close to them because they want to see them when they're as they age. But I think industry for Southwest Miramichi is vital, and there's a lot of passion, a lot of arguments surrounding many industries, but we need to find a way to take a closer look and be a little more welcoming, because if we want to stay here, and if we want our families to stay here, we have to take a good look at what certain provinces like Newfoundland and their offshore oil, Saskatchewan with their shale gas and oil industries, northern British Columbia and its gas and oil, and Alberta of course has everything. But you know, we need to look at those provinces and how they've become have provinces. New Brunswick can be a have province, but not without industry. It's not possible. And that's the one thing that I think is most important for people in Southwest Miramichi. Not long after the election was over, 3 colleagues of mine, Wes McLean, Carl Killen, and Greg Davis, were all interviewed by St. Thomas University at the Legislative Assembly, because all 4 of us had been St. Thomas graduates. And it was really cool, and it's great. It's a great photo. It's inside the assembly, and the St. Thomas Alumni Magazine Connections did a really good job on that story. But I remember the name of the story was The Giving Back Issue, and all 4 of us at some point were describing how we wanted to give back to the community. And as an MLA, you can help with funding, and you can lobby to help your recreation facilities like your arenas, your ball fields, your schools, and these are huge in a community. Communities this small, people really appreciate those funding arrangements, and people work really hard to match funds, and local businesses are very, very welcoming to all these projects at the same time. But one thing that I wanted to do, I had an idea for a number of years on a foundation that would support chronic illness, and it wasn't long after that issue that I gave a name to this idea, and I called it the Josie Foundation. Josie Sturgeon, basically, she was a Keenan, is my grandmother, and she was from the Howard Road, and she passed away of multiple myeloma when I was in grade 3, and I'll never forget it. It was the last day of school, and I remember I had Blanche Donovan for a teacher, and I was really concerned that I was going to fail math, and I was so worried because I didn't want to have to repeat grade 3. And at the time I was struggling with math, and of course my grandmother was really ill at the time, and she'd had multiple myeloma for 5 years at that point. And I remember I woke up in the morning, and my father came into my bedroom, and he said, "Jake, you don't have to go to school today. Nanny died." And him and Mom told me about, you know, what happened, and we talked a lot about it, and I stayed home for the day. And I remember Mrs. Donovan came to the funeral, and it really meant a lot looking back, because I mean, I was 9 years old, and I was really worried that I was going to fail a school year, and my grandmother was like my second mother, you know, so it was a very rough time looking back. And I passed math and was really excited when my teacher showed up to the funeral. But I always wanted to do something built on passion, and the Josie Foundation is that. And it was of course it's in memory of my grandmother, but it's for chronic illness. People that have chronic illness who are suffering often have a hard time paying the heat bill, buying the gasoline for the travel they do for their treatments, you know, hotel accommodations if needed, if they have to travel farther for treatment. People are often deciding between the oil bill and their medication. So gasoline and food become, you know, they have to make really tough choices. And the Josie Foundation has a board of directors. It's an incorporated company that's going to be a charitable organization. It's a non-profit. It's got a really dedicated group of passionate people who care. We've started helping people. We've probably helped, you know, maybe 15 or 20 people just in the last few months. We're off the ground working on a logo. We have our websites now, and it's a very positive thing. We've patented the name, of course, and basically it was a huge undertaking. I don't think any of us at the time realized how big this thing is. I mean, we knew it was a great idea. We knew people would be like, wow, this is it. This is a good idea. But it was a tremendous amount of hard work and a lot of detail, a lot of attention to detail. And it's something that I was able to give back to the community with the help of people that support the Josie Foundation. That's businesses and people that attend the dinners and the charitable hockey games. And I released an album of my own music. The proceeds of that went to the foundation. There was a lot of unique things done to raise funds for the foundation, but it's something that everybody can relate to, and it's something that has nothing to do with government. You know, what lies ahead? I think the future looks good. I mean, the near future, I've got 2 sons that are both going to be in hockey this year, so I'm going to help with the team. And I've got a lot of events coming up with the Remembrance Day week, of course, in November. And you know, I think for Blackville and for Southwest Miramichi, New Brunswick, I think the best is always yet to come. The great thing about this job is that there's never a dull moment. Every day is a new challenge, and sometimes every day is 25 new challenges. And the thing I must do is just keep going straight ahead, try to do a good job, and listen to the people, and, you know, enjoy my kids and look to the future. It looks bright.